Ladies and gentlemen, there are people among us quiet, observant, deeply aware, who seem to move differently. They are not better. They are simply tuned into a different frequency of life. They are what we might call highly vibrational people. These individuals are not consumed by the chaos around them. They don't escape life. They transcend it, not by leaving it behind, but by engaging with it on a different level. Highly vibrational people feel deeply, but they are not consumed by what they feel. They understand that emotions are a part of life, but not the whole of it. Pain comes and they allow it. Sadness arrives and they let it speak. Joy rises and they welcome it without clinging. Their emotional world is rich, layered, and alive, yet it does not govern them. They do not suppress their emotions, but they also do not allow those emotions to drive their decisions, reactions, or identity. They have learned that feelings are not instructions. They are signals, and like signals, they must be understood, not blindly obeyed. Many people avoid feeling altogether. They distract themselves with noise, movement, work, or relationships just to keep from sitting still with their own experience. But those who vibrate at a higher frequency have made peace with discomfort. They know that real strength is not in hardening, but in softening. When something hurts, they don't shut it down or pretend it doesn't exist. They observe it. They allow the pain to speak without giving it control. This is not passivity. It is courage. It takes far more bravery to sit with discomfort than to run from it. What sets highly vibrational people apart is not that they are immune to emotional pain, but that they are not afraid of it. They do not resist life's harder moments. They know that when you resist pain, you feed it. But when you allow it, it passes through you. And in that passing, you are changed. They are not interested in numbing. They are interested in understanding. They want to know, what is this emotion telling me? What does this experience reveal about my values, my wounds, my boundaries? They are not reactive. They do not explode or collapse when something intense arises. Instead, they pause. They breathe. They recognize that the mind creates stories around emotions, but the body simply wants to release what it carries. They give space for that release, for that internal processing, without making it personal. They've learned that emotions are temporary messengers, not permanent truths. It is not that they do not feel anger. They do, but they do not allow anger to consume their clarity. It is not that they do not feel fear. They feel it, but they do not give it the steering wheel. They've cultivated a sense of inner steadiness that can hold even the stormiest feelings. That steadiness comes from inner work, from facing the self honestly, from spending time in silence, from learning to sit still with what most people avoid. They don't see emotion as a problem to fix. They see it as a movement to witness. Emotions are like weather. They pass. No storm lasts forever. But if you resist the rain, if you scream at the sky, you only suffer more. Highly vibrational people know how to stand in the rain without collapsing. They feel the rain and they let it wash through them. They are not cold. They are warm. But their warmth does not come from emotional chaos. It comes from emotional balance. They don't suppress. They process. They don't over-identify. They observe. They understand that being emotional doesn't mean being unstable. It means being alive. But they also know that true power is in how you hold those emotions, not in ignoring them, not in indulging them, but in staying rooted even as they rise and fall like waves in the sea. Solitude is often misunderstood. To many, it feels like isolation, like a reminder of what's missing. But to highly vibrational people, solitude is not something to be feared or avoided. It is something sacred. It is in solitude that they find themselves again, not because they reject others, but because they need space to reconnect with their own center. They do not view being alone as a failure of connection. They see it as a restoration of balance. The external world is noisy, full of opinions, expectations, and emotional clutter. In solitude, they strip away the layers that are not theirs. They are not hiding. They are not withdrawing out of pain or fear. They are returning to a space where they can hear the quietest parts of themselves. In a world that constantly pulls attention outward, the ability to look inward is a rare and valuable skill. Highly vibrational people know that without solitude, it becomes easy to lose track of their truth. They feel the need to retreat, not to escape, but to listen. Their solitude is intentional. It's a choice. It's where their thoughts become clearer, their emotions more manageable, their energy more aligned. When they are alone, they do not fill the space with noise. They are not rushing to fill silence with stimulation. They are comfortable in the quiet, even when it reveals difficult truths. They do not fear their own company. In fact, they often prefer it when they need to reset. They know that in solitude, there is space to heal. There is time to reflect. There is room to breathe. Without the constant pressure to perform, explain, or react, they return to a more honest state of being. They meet themselves again and again in the quiet. Highly vibrational people experience solitude not as an absence of others, but as a presence of self. It is a deliberate choice to return to authenticity. They understand that in order to engage meaningfully with the world, they must first be in harmony with themselves. This harmony cannot be found in the crowd. It cannot be found in constant conversation. It emerges in stillness, where no one is asking them to be anything other than who they are. Solitude becomes a mirror in which they see themselves clearly. It is not about superiority or arrogance. They don't retreat from others because they think they are better. They retreat because they value clarity. They know that the self is not something fixed. It is something in constant motion, influenced by energies, environments, and emotions. Solitude helps them discern what is theirs and what is not. It helps them recognize which feelings belong to them and which are absorbed from others. They don't fear this space. They treasure it. They understand that the most powerful insights don't shout. They whisper, and it's only in solitude that those whispers can be heard. The thoughts that matter most, the ones that carry wisdom, do not rise up in noise. They emerge in the soft space of quiet, in the early mornings, in late nights, in walks alone, in moments without distractions, when the world pauses, and they are finally able to feel what's real. They've learned that solitude is not a punishment. It is a path back to what is essential. When they are alone, they are not empty. They are full of awareness, full of presence, full of internal richness. They do not need the constant company of others to validate their worth. They have touched something within that is steady, even when the world is not. They carry that steadiness back with them when they rejoin the world, and it shapes how they move, how they speak, how they choose. Highly vibrational people perceive the world in ways that go far beyond what is spoken. While most people rely heavily on language to understand others, these individuals are tuned into something deeper, energy, presence, subtle cues that exist beneath the surface. They walk into a room and feel the atmosphere before a single word is exchanged. They can sense tension hidden behind a smile, feel unease wrapped in politeness, and detect sincerity even in silence. It's not magic or mystery. It's sensitivity. It's an acute awareness of the nonverbal, the emotional, the energetic layer of human interaction that so often goes unnoticed. They don't just listen to what someone says. They feel how it's said. They notice the pauses, the shifts in tone, the slight hesitations that betray doubt or discomfort. They pick up on body language that contradicts spoken words, and their intuition alerts them when something is off. This isn't about judgment. It's not about suspicion. It's about presence. They are deeply present in the moment, and because of that, they absorb far more information than what is on the surface. This makes them naturally empathetic, though they may not always express that empathy openly. They simply know when someone is struggling, even if that person insists they're fine. This depth of perception often makes shallow interactions difficult for them. Surface-level conversations feel empty. They crave realness. They are drawn to people who are honest, even when the truth is messy. Because they themselves are honest with what they feel, they struggle to pretend. Pretending feels like a disconnection, like stepping away from themselves. And that disconnection costs them more than it's worth. They would rather sit in silence and engage in small talk that hides rather than reveals. Their sensitivity makes them highly aware of emotional authenticity, and they are most comfortable in environments where authenticity is valued. They're not easily fooled by performance. A loud voice, a confident demeanor, a well-crafted story. None of that is enough to convince them that the energy behind it doesn't match. They sense when someone is performing rather than being. This isn't about skepticism. It's about congruence. They look for alignment between words and presence. When the two match, they feel safe. When they don't, something in them tenses. This awareness helps them protect their energy, avoid manipulation, and form deeper, more meaningful connections. Because of their sensitivity to energy, they often need space to recharge. Being around intense or chaotic energy drains them, even if no conflict occurs. They may find crowded places overwhelming, not because of noise, but because of the sheer volume of emotional and energetic data they are processing. They need environments where they can feel calm, where the energy is steady, grounded, and real. These spaces help them stay connected to themselves while navigating the emotional landscapes of others. This heightened sensitivity is not always easy to carry. It means they often feel things others miss. It means they notice pain that isn't spoken and unrest that isn't acknowledged. It can be exhausting to live in a world where much of what they sense is invisible to others. But over time, they learn to manage this sensitivity with care. They learn to trust their intuition without overthinking it. They learn to ground themselves, to return to stillness after being exposed to emotional noise. They also become more selective about who they allow close. Because they feel energy so deeply, they know that not all relationships are nurturing. They understand that being around someone with conflicting or unstable energy can throw them off course. So they choose connection carefully. They are drawn to people who feel balanced, centered, or at the very least, honest about where they are. In those connections, they find resonance. And in that resonance, they feel understood without the need for many words. Highly vibrational people are not addicted to noise. In a world that constantly demands attention, that fills every corner of life with sound, distraction, and stimulation, they have found a different rhythm. They do not reach for their phones the moment silence appears. They do not panic when nothing is happening. They are not in a race to fill the void. Instead, they welcome stillness. They understand that silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It is in the quiet that they meet themselves most honestly, without the interference of other people's voices or society's demands. They have a different relationship with time. They are not rushing from one moment to the next. They're not afraid to pause. This stillness, this willingness to slow down, allows them to stay grounded. While others chase constant movement, they seek depth. And depth requires quiet. They know that clarity does not rise in chaos. It grows in spaciousness. In moments when nothing is demanding, when everything is simply allowed to be, they reconnect with their intuition, their thoughts, their emotions. This clarity becomes a compass. It guides them more reliably than any opinion, any trend, any external approval. Highly vibrational people are deliberate with what they consume. They are not passive receivers of noise. They choose their input with care, whether it's music, conversation, media, or environment. They notice how certain sounds, images, or ideas make them feel. They feel the weight of words. They feel the residue of overstimulation. And because of this awareness, they limit their exposure. They know that not everything deserves a place in their mental space. Not every voice should be allowed to echo inside them. They curate their inner world the way someone might tend a garden, with attention, with intention, with boundaries. They don't seek noise to escape their minds. They don't fear the quiet that reveals their inner dialogue. They face their thoughts, even the uncomfortable ones. They allow themselves to feel boredom, to confront uncertainty, to sit with discomfort. They've learned that these moments carry the seeds of growth, that in the absence of distraction, something real emerges. Insight, direction, healing. While others fill the silence with anything they can, highly vibrational people hold space for what arises naturally. This lack of addiction to noise is not just external, it's internal too. They are not constantly narrating their lives in their minds. They don't spiral in self-talk that never ends. They practice presence. They know how to quiet the inner chatter and return to the moment. This doesn't mean their minds are always calm. It means they have developed the capacity to notice when the mind becomes loud and gently bring it back to stillness. This ability to regulate their internal state is what allows them to remain stable, even when the world around them is chaotic. Because they are not addicted to noise, they are also not easily distracted from their purpose. They are focused, aligned, intentional, They don't need constant stimulation to feel alive. They find life in simplicity. They find it in a conversation that matters, in a sunrise, in a breath. They are present enough to experience depth in what others overlook. And because they are not constantly chasing stimulation, they are free to observe, to reflect, to create. Their creativity doesn't come from forcing thoughts. It comes from space, from the silence where new ideas are born without pressure. Their detachment from noise makes them different, sometimes misunderstood. Some may see them as quiet, aloof, or even distant, but they are not disconnected. They are deeply connected to themselves, to life, to what matters most. They are simply not drawn to chaos. They do not crave the kind of excitement that burns out quickly. They are comfortable in the stillness most people run from. They know that in silence, truth reveals itself, and they trust that truth more than any loud opinion or temporary distraction. Highly vibrational people do not approach life as a competition. They don't look at others and feel the urge to outshine them, to surpass them, or to prove something. Their focus is not on comparison, but on alignment. They are not chasing external measures of success. They are listening inward, tuning into what feels right, what feels true, and what brings a quiet sense of fulfillment. They are aware that life is not a race, and that the paths we walk are not meant to look the same. They respect the timing of their journey, without trying to force it to match someone else's. They do not measure their value by how far ahead or behind they appear. They understand that each person is on a unique path, with different lessons, different timing, and different purpose. This awareness allows them to move through life with calmness, not urgency. They do not operate from a scarcity mindset. They do not believe that someone else's success diminishes their own. In fact, they celebrate others genuinely because they are secure in their own path. Their sense of worth comes from within, not from winning, achieving, or being seen. This internal steadiness gives them a different kind of presence. They are not easily shaken by the pressure to compete. They do not feel the need to perform or conform in order to be accepted. They are not distracted by what others are doing. They are more interested in asking themselves whether what they are doing is aligned with who they really are. Alignment, to them, means integrity. It means choosing the path that reflects their values, even when it doesn't bring immediate rewards or recognition. They are not in it for approval. They are in it for truth. This way of living requires self-trust. It requires the ability to say no to things that look good but feel wrong. It requires the courage to slow down when everyone else is speeding up. And it requires the strength to stay rooted when external validation is absent. Highly vibrational people have developed this strength over time, through reflection, through experience, through learning the difference between achievement and peace. They've come to understand that alignment may not always be glamorous, but it is deeply fulfilling. It brings a kind of quiet that no trophy can provide. They don't seek to be better than others. They seek to be better aligned with themselves. And because of this, they move differently. They listen more than they talk. They observe more than they react. They create from authenticity, not from pressure. They are not chasing trends. They are not trying to keep up. They are expressing what's real for them, even if it doesn't fit the mold. This authenticity draws the right people and opportunities toward them, not through force, but through resonance. What is meant for them finds them because they are aligned with it. In their relationships, they bring the same energy. They are not possessive, jealous, or controlling. They do not view others as threats. They support without needing to dominate. They understand that true connection is not based on power, but on presence. They respect the growth of others and honor their own. They are not in relationships to feel superior or complete themselves. They are there to share, to grow, to experience life more deeply through honest connection. Even in challenging times, they return to alignment as a guide. When something feels off, they pause, they reassess. They do not push through just to meet expectations. They adjust, realign, and move forward with intention. Their life becomes less about outcomes and more about staying true to what feels right. They may not take the fastest path, but they take the one that reflects who they really are. And in doing so, they create a life that is not just successful on the outside, but whole on the inside.